What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Thank you for joining me for another replay battle. Today I've got a battle with a format that is weird. I don't think I've ever done a 3 versus 4 versus 1, so I am really excited to see how this pans out. And if it's good, then I will definitely try and get some more battles with this format on the channel in the future. But in any case, let's get into the army comps and then into the replay itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. Alright, and so the first army we're going to look at today is the forces of Rohan, being commanded by Glowbox, who sent in the replay, by the way, so a big thank you to Glowbox for supporting the channel. He has brought 2 units of Shield Maidens. They're all getting kind of shuffled around right now, but I believe he's also got 3 units of the Easterling Archers, who are like a medium tier archer unit. I think he's mostly just bringing them for the sheer volume of fire. And against factions like Harad, who have fairly low armor values across the board, the Easterling Archers can be very cost effective. Also got a couple units over here of Helmingas, who are above the Easterling Archers in terms of power, but they are also better armed and armored, and they have AP in melee since they are wielding axes. So they could be a really nice generalist unit. All in all, his skirmish line is not merely meant to save the day, but they can be very cost effective. Over here we got a couple units of Marshals of the Red, heavy shock infantry for Rohan. I believe these guys have, I think it's 2 HP, although they may have more, maybe 3 HP. They're quite expensive, and you can bring 2 of them before you get a prohibitive price increase. Over here in the center we have the Helm Hammers, because where else would these guys be? They are the anchor to the Rohan infantry line. This is like their God tier infantry unit that can be counted on to anchor your battle line as Rohan. And behind them he's got the Shield Maidens, who we've seen already, and then he's got his very strong cavalry wing. Naturally, Rohan being a cavalry-oriented faction, you would expect them to have some pretty god tier stuff, and indeed they do. He's got 1 unit of Rohan bodyguards, multiple HP. They're basically Royal Guard with more hit points. These guys are the Rohan nobles. I think they're down to 2 HP now. They may be a little bit higher. These are previously the I can't remember what they were in some other patches, but they've just had a name change and a little bit of a stat decrease. Now here we have the Kalanardhan Knights, who are really expensive. I think they cost about 2,500 to bring at last look. I could be wrong about that. They've got at least 3 HP, possibly 4, and they're basically just really good at everything. They're anti-infantry, anti-large. This isn't Warhammer. Hold on. Anti-cavalry. And they have some really fearsome attack and defense stats to boot. But naturally, they are a little bit expensive, and that's intended to balance them out a little bit. Although, in my opinion, this unit is a little bit too strong, just because it's good at everything. Being expensive doesn't necessarily mean, in my opinion, that it should be able to be good at everything. I would like to see more specialized cavalry units along the lines of how Age Reforged does things. But in any case, I digress. That is the Rohan army. Moving on over to this end, we have the Dalian army being commanded by Pope Fluffyduck. He's got 3 units of Dalian marksmen. I really like these guys as a unit. They are a skirmish superiority unit. That's the best way that I can describe them. They've got good attack and defense stats, 10 missile damage, and shield values to boot. So these guys can outshoot most of the archers in the game, even elven ones, thanks to their shield values, unless of course the unit that they're facing down has AP, in which case that shield value is stripped from them entirely, as the bolts will go right through it. He's also got 3 units of Bardian marksmen, who are really nice. I would say that they're like medium to high tier. They've got shields on their backs, so I think that they also have shield values, but they do not have the fearsome melee and defense stats that the Dalian marksmen do. I think they have a little bit higher missile damage though, but I could be wrong about that one. It's been a while since I've actually thoroughly reviewed all of the stats, so my knowledge is getting a little bit rusty. I'll have to fix that. But I am kind of waiting for the next patch. A couple units here of Lake Town Pikes, and they're pikemen. They're really strong from the front. They are a little bit vulnerable to missiles though. The Lake Town pikemen are, I would say they're like medium militia tier pikes almost, and they are quite easily shot down. Fluffy Duck also bringing a couple units of Dalian Swordmasters, really strong units. The only thing they really lack is, is AP and high armor values. So yeah, all around a really nice unit, lots of HP as well. Behind them we got some Dalian Paladins, who are everything that the Dale Swordmasters wish they could be. Look at this. This is you. This is the guy your girlfriend tells you not to worry about. The Dalian Paladins are a big upgrade. The only thing they really lack is a little bit of numbers. As you can see here, the Dale Swordmasters do have about 10 extra individuals on the Dalian Paladin unit. Moving on to the cavalry wing, it's quite sparse. We got some Dalian cav here, 2 units in fact, and a unit of Earls to back them up. I think the Earls are where no, indeed, this is where the general's going to be hanging out. It's going to be hanging out with the Dalian Paladins, because these are the guys you want to be seen with at the party, of course. Let's move on now to their allies. Here we have the forces of Eriador being commanded by Yankonoyu. I have no idea how I would say that. I apologize if there's a proper pronunciation for that, and I have butchered your name. Do forgive me. But he's ran a couple units of Cardolan Knights, who, as I recall, are 2 HP. Decent enough shock cavalry. Eriador tends to be a little bit lower, a little less, I don't know, do I want to say cost-effective? Their units tend to be not quite as powerful as other factions, but they are a little bit cheaper to bring, and you can field them in quite great numbers, Eriador being somewhat akin to an Orcish faction in that regard. Out here we got a couple units of Foreshell Gatekeepers. Everybody loves these guys. Nobody likes to fight against them, however. They are halberd units who are anti-cavalry and anti-armor, and they've got some nasty, nasty crossbow damage that they can dish out as well. I'm just gonna call him Yanko, just for the easiness of it, ease of use. We've got 3 units here of Foreshell Heavy Spearmen on the front line, a couple units of Foreshell Heavy Swords, and the third line being composed of, I believe, 3 units of Cardolan Footmen. Also got a unit of the Foreshell Captains, and 1 unit of Grey Company, who are AP missiles, by the way, so excellent for sniping out high-priority targets. Moving on to this end, we have the forces of Dol Amroth being commanded by Bobo16. He's got, I believe, 4 or 5 units of the Dol Amroth in arms, possibly 6. 3 units of the Adelon Halberdiers, 1 unit of Trebuchet. He's also got some Coastal Wardens here, a unit of Dismounted Swan Knights, actually 2 of them in fact, and 1 unit of Mounted Swan Knights, which is where his general is going to be hanging out. And last, but certainly not least, he's got a unit of Doran Ernal Lancers. From what I remember, these guys they're AP in melee, but they have really low attack values. So never mind, that's the Tirathair Lancers. Doran Ernal Lancers, I think, are like a medium tier Lancer unit. They can be pretty decent, although they are, as I recall, a little bit slower than I would personally like. Now, moving on to the Gundabad force here. This is one of the players that are on their own. This is actually, the one-person team. So he's got a lot of money to bring elite tier forces with, which is mostly what Gundabad is made up of anyway. So he's got, this is Bredders, by the way, got a couple units of Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, 1 unit of Witch Realm Blackguard, 2 units of Gundabad Guard, 1 unit of Witch Realm Pikemen, 2 Orcish Halberdiers here in his center line. He's also got 2 units of Rudar Berserkers, 1 Witch Realm Hammer Guard, and I think that's just about... No, he's actually got some archers as well. 2 Goblin Trackers and 1 unit of a Numenorian Shadow Guard. You can't see them right now, though he's being all sneaky about it. Moving on to the developer team. We've got, well, they're mostly developers. Recrius is like a tester, and he's really involved with testing things and that, but I don't know if he actually creates content for Reforged. I don't know. But in any case, the first armor we're going to look at here is WK, the Great Map Maker. He's got, I believe, 4 or 5 units of Haradrim Archers, 4 units of Southron Pikemen, AP Pikes. They lack armor, though, so they will get shot down very easily, but damn, AP Pikes. That's scary. What else do you need, really? I believe he's got 4 units of Southron Warband, AP Spears, so a lot of really lightly armored, high damage AP units here on the Haradrim lineup. A couple units of Haradrim Spearmen, one of which is the General's Bodyguard, because this is what WK likes to do. He likes to, there's the General. He likes to put his General in some cheap units and just keep those back, rather than putting them in an expensive unit and keeping them out of the fight where they could be otherwise put to good use. Over here we got a couple units of Trollmen of Harad, 1 unit of Demons of the Desert, and I think that just about does it, except for, yes, here they are, the famous Mumakil. You can see those great lumbering beasts just inching their way out of the forest. They are very, very scary, but they're extremely vulnerable to javelins, which is probably why Dol Amroth has some javelins on their end. But I think that just about does it for the army comps. So let's go ahead and let's jump right into the replay. Ha! Just kidding. I totally didn't make a mistake. That was planned. Anyway, over here we have the forces of Set of the Dark Cloud. Got 4 units of Nerad Footmen. AP Light Infantry. These guys are really, really good, mostly because they are cost effective and they can deal a serious amount of damage to even elite troops. Up front, we got 3 units of Nirniag Infantry, who are like a medium tier infantry unit, but they also are armed with bows, so they make a nice addition to the skirmish line. Sin also has, I believe, 3 units of Nirniag Raiders, light bowmen, a lot of skirmish on the side of Khans. He's also got, a ton of cavalry, as you would expect from the nomads. A couple units here of the Haruzi horse archers. 3 units, I believe. He's also got 2 units of Varied Cataphracts, 1 unit of Brotherhood of the Lance, which is where his general's bodyguard is going to be hanging out. And I don't know where they've gone, but he's got 2 units of Wind Riders and 1 unit of the Windblades. Oh yeah, here we are. It's like a god tier, heavily offensive-minded, but not quite as heavily armored light cavalry unit for Harad, for Khand. The Windblades, very, very strong. I think they have like 3 HP too. And of course, we got the 2 units of Wind Riders of Khand, the immaculate light cavalry unit. I really, really enjoyed them, and I don't see them being used nearly enough. But let's move on now to the third and final army. We have the forces of Recrius, who is commanding the Kingdom of Rune. He's got 3 units of Clan Crossbows, 3 units of Loknar Rim. Everybody loves the crossbows. Loknar Rim usually trade pretty efficiently with other good faction archer units, but they are not a really strong archer unit by any means. Also got 3 units here of Clansmen, just as a nice little meat shield. 4 units, I believe, of the Lok Flag Rim, and you can't see them because I think they're still hiding, but he does have a unit of Dragon's Wrath crossbows as well. And finally, his general's bodyguard consists of a unit of Kamul's Chosen. But that is not all. He's got actually 3 units of Variag Lancers. I like the Variag Lancers. They're a little bit expensive, but they can trade really well with other cavalry units. I believe they're also anti-cav. And 2 units of Lokayinas Rim. The Cataphracts, a classic rune unit. These guys are not bad at all. They do not have the HP, though, that the bodyguard unit has. So they're more fragile. I wouldn't say they're easy to kill, because they are heavily armored cataphracts, but they are more fragile than other elite tier cavalry units. So there we go. Got all of the army comps in there this time for real. Let's go ahead and start the replay. So let's take a moment here and observe the order of battle before we really get into things, because there's some important things that the 4-person team is doing right here. So we can see that Rohan is getting themselves into a position where they're going to be able to launch a really furious attack on the Gundabad right flank. And Gundabad really doesn't have any cavalry to counter these guys, and those fast-moving units can potentially be a really big danger, not just to Gundabad, but ultimately to the 3-person Men of the East team. Now, if we look, most of his allies, most of Globox's allies, that is, are heading around to pin these guys in place and engage them. Instead of just sending the whole team over there to devour Gundabad in one place, in one fell swoop, I should say, they're going to pin the other side in place by using more or less equal force enough to equal the armies that they have arrayed over there across the field. And Globox is going to be able to, I think, with his large amounts of heavy cavalry and the complete lack of a Gundabad counter to it, they're going to be able to sweep these guys away. Now, Gundabad's only real hope in this kind of situation is a rush. And if you look at this, Rohan rather, is still out of position. So if he were to rush in with his entire army, especially if the rest of them were situated better, he's a little bit slow to react here, and it's just kind of one big line. It's nothing really effective that's going to be able to put up serious resistance to Globox once he's in position, and his allies are over there as well, ready to support him. So their best chance at doing some serious damage to Rohan, they might not beat them, but they will definitely sweep away a lot of their infantry force, is to just go in with their heavy hitters, hit him hard, try and overwhelm his very meager infantry line, because that is definitely the biggest weakness here of this Rohan comp, is their infantry line. There's not a lot of them. Gundabad definitely outnumbers them at least 3 to 1 in that regard, and they may be able to overwhelm his defenses and sweep him away. The cavalry obviously is still going to be a big problem, and that's going to be the case when you have an army that just doesn't have counters to them. But in this case, I think the best chance for Gundabad is to rush towards Globox and try and do as much damage to him as possible. But he's just not. He's being very passive right now. Bredders is going to take up a defensive position over here in the woods from the looks of things, and I really don't think that is the best option here for his survivability. I mean, once Globox is ready and everything is in position, especially right now, here to rush forward, look at this. He doesn't even have infantry lines set up. He's in the process of moving his entire skirmish line, so they're not ready to fire. And he's got some heavy infantry not very far away. He could catch up with them, and I don't even know that the cavalry would be able to stop them. At the very least, the cavalry would be obliged to run through their own troops, which means that they're not going to get a charge bonus off, so they're going to end up locked in place with some heavy infantry, and that is not really how you want to use your cavalry, especially some of the lighter cavalry, like the Rohan Royal Guard. they need to be getting their charge off, especially the bodyguard as well. They are quite swift, and a lot of their damage comes from their charge. Not a lot of men in that unit, so they want to try and take advantage of that if at all possible. And Gundabad could really deny them a lot of Rohan's advantages with a sudden rush attack. I don't think he would win. I think that Glowbox would wear him down with his cavalry and his allies over here as well, and get a couple units of Daily and Cat from Pope Fluffy Duck. I think that would eventually overwhelm the Gundabad infantry force, but doing what he's doing now, really not a chance. But in any case, let's move on back over to the other side. Looks like we got some more cavalry coming in here. Some Cardolan Knights and some Grey Company from Yanko. That's going to be a big problem for Gundabad as well. There's just so much cavalry arrayed over there. And I think what the strategy is going to be is to pin the developers in place. I don't know if I mentioned if this is a developer team or not, but indeed it is for the most part. And I think the strategy is going to be to pin the developers in place, crush Gundabad quickly. That's hence the heavy commitment of cavalry over on the left, and swing wide around and come in and hit the developers from behind. So it looks like Recrius is suspecting something similar, and he is moving forward with his battalions of runic warriors, getting, looks like he's going to take a defensive position probably up here on the hill. This is a nice place for those archers to be. Unfortunately, these stakes seem to be facing the wrong direction. So yeah, Recrius does have a substantial force over here. He's got some Variag Lancers, who are, I believe, anti-cavalry, so they will trade reasonably well with some of the allied cavalry over there, but the heavy hitters like the Rohan Nobles or the Telenorhan Knights, for example, are going to pose a serious threat to these guys. So this is not quite enough cavalry over here, I think, to deal with the menace, but it is certainly going to help, and I bet Gundabad wishes they had a few companies of friendly Variag Lancers to help them out at this point in time. So Gundabad looking like they're gonna, I think they're in the process of setting up kind of like a square formation, dare I say it, the noob box, which can be a viable strategy, and certainly in this place, in this instance rather, definitely is when he's surrounded by so many fast movers like this. Really all he can do, since he's not going to take the initiative and charge them, and he's definitely lost that opportunity now. He's a lot farther away than he was otherwise, so he's not going to be able to make a rush towards Glowbox without Glowbox having enough warning to be able to set up lines and to use his cavalry to bring up that charge. So if he's not going to do that, this is really the best option, I think, that he has at his disposal, is to get a lot of those halberd units, pike units, and of course the Gundabad guards into position, facing down the cavalry, though he does have a weak point in his defenses right here in the form of the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders. They will get run down by heavy cav. But yeah, this is really the only thing that I think that the only option that he has left to him at this point. But there's a lot of maneuvering going on right now, so I'm going to fast forward just a little bit, and I will see you guys in just a few moments. So popping back in over to the other side, we can see a little bit of a skirmish fight here beginning to materialize between the developers and the community team. Should we call them the community team? I'll just call them the community team, and Gundabad will be called Gundabad because they don't technically have a team other than themselves. So yes, the community team here probing the defenses of Sin of the Dark Cloud. It looks like Harad actually has a couple units of Serpent Guard here hiding in the woods, which is actually that's a big development. They've got a decent amount of cav over here, especially with the forces of Khand heavily concentrated over on this wing, and looks like some of the runic heavy cataphracts are coming over to this side to support them as well. So this is definitely a flaw in the strategy of the community team. If the developers are able to sweep them away, and they've got the cavalry to do it, if they're able to sweep these guys away and maintain their numbers moving into the late game, it very well could be the case that even if Rohan and the allied cavalry is victorious, or are victorious, on the left wing, when they swing wide around and try to come in behind the developer position, the developers will just be able to shift back around, use their numbers, use their cavalry, and especially those Momakil in the back as well, to shut down the Rohan team. So that is definitely a danger. If Rohan gets bogged down or takes too much damage fighting Gundabad, that's going to be a problem. And again, if this community team over here, this heavy commitment, is shut down by the developers, and the developers manage to maintain a decent amount of standing forces after the fact, the community team strategy could very well fall apart quite quickly. But let's go ahead and let's fast forward just a little bit. Let's not fast forward, let's put it on normal speed. Looks like over here, the Serpent Guard from WK getting a little bit too far ahead of themselves. There's not a lot of support here. Looks like Sin of the Dark Cloud is rushing in there with his Wind Riders of Khand. Those light cavalry not going to have a good time against the Doranurnal Lancers, but it does slow them down and prevent them from coming in to the rear of WK's Serpent Guard. Over here, Dol Amroth committing some of their dismounted Swan Knights to the aid of their mounted counterparts, This is really, really ugly for the Serpent Guard. They need to be pulled out as quickly as possible. Looks like WK is a little bit otherwise occupied, microing his Serpent Guard around to the back lines. It could be that he's going to go right after the archers, and maybe they're going to try and skirmish them down. It looks like Sin of the Dark Cloud's going to beat him to it, though. Wind Riders of Khand getting in there, in amongst the Blackroot Vale archers. That's going to be ugly for them. Dol Amroth is going to respond in kind with a couple units of Adelon Halberdiers. These are anti-cav units, and they will cut down those Wind Riders. Sin of the Dark Cloud's not going to give them an opportunity to get into position to do so, however, and he is going to pull out of there as quickly as possible. Looks like we've got some Serpent Guards, some of the beaten down Serpent Guard moving in around the position. Yes, I see what they're going after. They're going after the Trebuchet from Dol Amroth. Hopefully Duck's going to move in to try and support his ally with his Earls, but damn, there's some serious problems here for this artillery piece, and that's a lot of money that might not end up counting for a whole lot. Looks like the Serpent Guard were going after some of the pikemen. Probably not a good idea. I don't know what these guys are doing here. They're a little bit out of position. I think they'd be much better served going after the Trebuchet. Looks like maybe WK wanted to get a piece of those coastal wardens, maybe use up some of their ammunition, try and kill them, because they are a serious counter to his Momokill. Let's pop on over to the other end. And looks like, oh man, Gundabad's formation is in complete disarray here. Yeah, this is really very much of a mess, I think. And it looks like maybe the Rohirrim forces are in position, and we could start to see a little bit of action go down over here on the community team's left flank. Globox has moved in now with his Helmingas, beginning to open up fire on the front lines, probably trying to thin things out a little bit before the main assault begins. I imagine his target is going to be the Black Uruks of the Mountain. They are nice and bunched up for him right now, and very, very easily shot down. Although it seems to be he's going after Numenorean Shield Guard. These guys in a block formation like this, they are going to get massacred by those cheap arrows. They need to be spread out and in loose formation in a nice spaghetti line. But things are just kind of in the preliminary stages over here, so let's go ahead and let's slow it down and pop back over to the community developer team fight. And it looks like a lot of the cavalry from Sin of the Dark Cloud has been shut down. Not too sure what happened to them there. Rune has moved in as well. We can see a lot of dead cataphracts littering the ground here. The dismounted Swan Knights heavily reduced, probably because of some cycle charges. I got the Nerad Windblades here mopping up what remains of the Dor Inernal Lancers, which is, I believe, going to give the developers superiority in terms of cavalry in the back lines. But I think these piecemeal attacks here have really proven to be a problem for the developers. They might be throwing away a little bit of an advantage here. I think it would have been better if they went in all at once, if WK had pulled back his Serpent Guard, waited for Khand to be in position, waited for Runic Heavy Cataphracts to be brought up, and then went in with overwhelming force, and at the same time possibly even moved in with their infantry to pin many of the counters to their cavalry in place, like these Adelon Halberdiers, for example. If there was an angry Haradrim band battering down the shield wall here from Dol Amroth, and then these guys might not be able to form a back line in defense of the archers. This little I'm going to call it noob box. Noob boxes are, it's an insulting term, but that's, I'm sure, what many of you are thinking. They would not be able to form this noob box and defend their archers the way that they are. Over here looks like Dale, or no, actually this is Eriador doing the same thing. Nice little triangle formation. I actually really like that. All those spears there, able to support each other, especially on the corners like this, which is generally the weaker point of square formations. I really like that. And it looks like the community team is going to take the initiative here, move forward. There's a bit of a fight here going on between some of the Bardian marksmen. I see what happened here. Pofluffyduck brought these guys real close to fire point blank into the Haradrim as they were dealing with a push here from Eriador and into their front lines as well. And just trying to size down some of those lightly armored units of the Haradrim. But unfortunately, they got caught out here by a unit of Southron pikemen and some Southron warband as well. So those Bardian marksmen not going to have a good time. Pofluffyduck trying to support that archer unit with some charges from his Dalish Earls. But looks like the Dalish Earls actually took a reasonable amount of casualties there as well. They're very heavily armored 2 HP cavalry, so to see 5 or 6 of them die like that on a single charge, that's a pretty big loss. Looks like we pop back over to the other end. The fight between Gundabad and the allied cavalry, the community team cavalry, has begun. Oh man, Gundabad's just not having a good time here. His Black Uruks charging forward, trying to, I imagine, disrupt the archer line of Globox, are just going to get bisected by a group of Rohan bodyguards. Look at the damage. That is a lot of casualties to take really, really quickly. And oh, they're shaken. They could start to rout, and indeed they do. Now fighting to the death over here. The Marshals of the Red cutting down the Black Uruks. I think maybe there might have been some Gundabad guard in there. No, that's just another wave of Black Uruks. See, This I don't understand. Why go in piecemeal like this? Why not go in heavy with everything you've got rather than throwing away some of your more high-tier units on pointless charges? They're just going to get them killed. So I think Gundabad might be one of the newer players, so be gentle on them in the comment section. We've all been here. I can hear the groans already, and yeah, evidently they have a lot to learn, but I'm sure that they will get there. This is going to be a very, very stark learning experience for them, I'm sure. We can see Glowbox moving around with his Kalanarhan Knights, with his heavy hitters. Got some Cardolan Knights moving in to support them. Oh, this is going to be ugly. Let's go ahead. Follow that charge right in there. Straight into the Scourge Raiders. Kalanarhan Knights have a lot of HP, so even when they're surrounded like this by Rudar Berserkers and everything else, they can just drive hard home into infantry formations like this, slaughter people, and run back out with relatively low casualties, which isn't something that I necessarily agree with as a design choice, but maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But for the time being, this Kalanarhan Knights massacring these guys, just running right through them. You can see those Scourge Raiders just getting absolutely brutalized, and the Kalanarhan Knights are going to make it straight through there into the Goblin Trackers. I don't think those Goblin Trackers are going to be able to stand for too long against the high attack values of those heavily armored elite cavalry. In the back here, you can see just the wreck and ruin of much of Gundabad's skirmish force, and there goes the Gundabad general. Things are pretty well over, I would say, for Gundabad. His lines have been broken. He's got Glowbox's cavalry everywhere. He just lost a huge amount of his soldiers just to a single unit of Kalanarhan Knights who took very, very minor casualties in return. And his front line really hasn't done anything. He has an opportunity here to potentially sandwich these Kalanarhan Knights between a lot of infantry, and it looks like maybe he's trying to do that, but he's very slow to react, and Glowbox is pretty well able to run circles around him with his cavalry. We've got some Variag Lancers from Rune coming in. Looks like they're going straight for those Kalanarhan Knights. That is going to be ugly, denying these guys the charge. Really nice initiative here on the part of Recrius, and look at that. That massive attack there by the Variag Lancers is going to shatter those Kalanarhan Knights. Unfortunately, though, I don't think they need to be bunched up like this. He could be fanning them out and hitting Glowbox from the rear while he's engaged with some of the Gundabad cavalry, or infantry rather. But unfortunately, because of that heavy commitment, I would say an overcommitment on the part of Recrius, the cavalry from Glowbox is going to be able to wheel back around and come in to deal with that menace. Now, this is going to be... Oh, this is going to be brutal. Now, I want to get back over to the developers and the community team fight, but I also want to see this, because this is going to be a massacre. Bam, rear charge there, scything down a few of the Variag Lancers. The Rohan Royal Guard are going to be able to keep pace with these guys quite easily. They're very, very swift, and now, indeed, they are in amongst the Variag Lancers, killing as they will. So the Variags are going to be forced to retreat and move back towards their lines, having accomplished... I would say that they did a reasonable amount of damage to those Cardolan Knights. This was an opportunity, and Recrius did take advantage of it, but I think that there was further damage that he could have done, especially to that powerful Rohan cavalry. A charge from the rear by Variag Lancers, who are anti-cav, and AP on the charge. That would have been ugly for those Rohan nobles and for the Royal Guard, and ultimately would have been a very, very big victory for his team in the long run. Moving back over to the other end, the developers versus the community. It looks like things are pretty ugly right now. Po Fluffy Duck's Earls are just being overrun, massacred by a sudden sally here from the Variag cavalry. Got some cataphracts, a couple units of cataphracts actually, and some Haruzi horse archers pitting these guys in place. That is going to be game over for these Earls in just a few moments. Over here, you can see some of the horse archers have managed to make it into the skirmish line of Po Fluffy Duck. Big charge here from more horse archers and the Variag cataphracts straight into these Dalian marksmen. That's going to do a reasonable amount of damage to them, for sure. Po Fluffy Duck's going to countercharge here with his Dale Swordmasters, but unfortunately they're charging through their own units. Most of them are not going to be able to connect with these guys. The big advantage they does have is that there's a lot of skirmish units here that can basically just put these guys into a crossfire. So this is a precarious position for Sin of the Dark Cloud's cavalry, but I think it's only going to be a matter of moments here before this line begins to crumble. Looks like Dale is moving in with some of his paladins, though, trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. Laketown Pikemen following them in. Sin of the Dark Cloud is going to be obliged to move back with his Variag cataphracts and abandon this assault. Still, not a small amount of damage done, especially to these Earls, I think. Oh no, actually they stood up pretty well to it. What do you know? I guess the pikes were quite quick to get in there and force Sin of the Dark Cloud back before he could do some real lasting damage to the Earls. And they're going to follow them in there. Maybe not the best idea, but we'll see. It could be that they get into the clan crossbowmen and things like that from Recrius and really start to cause some problems for the developer skirmish line. But I don't think Sin of the Dark Cloud's going to let that happen. I think it looks like he's trying to shield his allies' crossbows a little bit, and he's going to turn around, countercharge with those Varied Cataphracts, getting into those Earls. Fluffy Duck, I think, realizes his mistake and is going to try and get out of there, but unfortunately he is going to get caught up in that. Now, it looks like we missed a little bit of Mumakill action here, which I am sad to see. It looks like some of the artillery pieces there, the Trebuchet from Dol Amroth, really reaping a terrible toll. Oh man, that is a lot of dead Trollmen of Harad, and looks like they managed to clip one of those Mumakill as well. But damn, that is a big loss for the Trollmen right there. Definitely an overcommitment from the side of Harad. They don't necessarily need all of those Trollmen to be in there to beat back some 4-shell heavy swords and some Black Wolves that have been committed by Eriador. I think I missed them, but they're able to hide anywhere, so that's pretty natural. Don't worry, it'll be included in the army comps in the pictures. But in any case, the force of Eriador here managing to regain a little bit of ground now that the Trollmen have departed. But I think that some chaff would have been better suited to dealing with this. And it looks like that Dol Amroth Trebuchet still around. Unfortunately, WK was not able to silence it, but it looks like Sin of the Dark Cloud is going to be able to finish what his allies started. Big charge here coming in from the Harad Windblades right into the rear of those Dol Amroth Trebuchet men. That is going to silence that artillery piece, although unfortunately it is too little too late for those Trollmen who lost a significant number of their units in a single volley there from that Trebuchet. So I'd say it has definitely paid for itself at this point. Over here we got the second unit of Trollmen pushing back a sally from Eriador. Fluffy Duck has some more of his forces in there to support a second push, a second wave, I should say, from the 4-shell heavy spearmen coming in from Eriador. That's a pretty decent pushing force right there. The spears supported by the Dale Swordmasters, not going to be an easy thing for the Trollmen and the Haradrim pikes to push through. Now that Sin of the Dark Cloud has silenced that Trebuchet, WK is going to be able to move back in with his Trollmen, free of any fear of losing the whole unit in the space of just a few volleys. But now that this is well and truly underway, let's go ahead and let's see how Gundabad is doing. Looks like Gundabad managed to finally sally forward and attack Rohan, but Rohan has just done so much damage to them, their allies as well. The passivity here was really the nail in their coffin. They had an opportunity, they absolutely did, to deny these cavalry the charge, to catch Glowbox out in the open before he was able to get prepared, but unfortunately, by allowing themselves to be surrounded like that, this is the result. And I think that this could have been avoided. I don't think Gundabad was going to win by any means. I think that Glowbox and his allies were still going to beat him, but I think that the damage that they could have done would have been far, far greater if they had just shown a little bit of initiative there and move forward to attack. Just accept your fate, go for glory, and try and do as much damage to your enemy as possible. Yeah, I think the fight was always going to come down in the end to the forces of the developers and the community. So another sally here from WK. Looks like he's managed to either push back or has noticed an opportunity here to sally forward. This looks like, oh, the Dol Amroth general has got cut down by the Nerniag infantry. So Khan has claimed the lives of the general of the Havens, and WK is going to follow that up with a massive charge here by his Southron warband. He's got his pikes in there as well. I think they're bringing up the rear. And yeah, Pope Fluffy Duck doesn't really have any infantry here to stop himself from being swept away. Although he does have the Dalian marksmen who do double as decent enough infantry. They have APs thanks to those axes and pretty decent defense stats. But I guess all these pikes and all these high damage AP spears, I don't think that these Dalian it's the Dalian marksmen, not the Bardian marksmen. I don't think that they're going to be able to stand up to this too well. Over here, one final glorious charge by the Earls. You know what? I'm going to take a picture of that. That is beautiful. That is going in the thumbnail. The Earls charging hard into the Haradrim Marchers. WK's Mumakill coming in from behind them, wreaking absolute bedlam in the back lines. The Bardian Marksman getting bowled over. Oh, those poor swordsmen having a real bad day. Most of them are going to get back up, but the disruption that these things are able to cause is significant in and of itself. Now over here, the Coastal Wardens being routed, I think, by the Mumakill. Just the presence of these guys causing the Coastal Wardens to flee for their lives. And unfortunately, the hard counter of Dol Amroth and the community team to these Mumakill is going to be swept from the field. Now that's going to be a big problem. Mumakill unchecked on their own. Actually, I'll show you a great example of this in one of our subsequent videos, which may be coming out today, of a 1v1 tournament battle with Mumakill. Unchecked, these guys not easy to kill. You really need to rely on your hard units like the Dale Swordmasters or the Dalian Paladins, things with high armor or high melee defense, or preferably both, that can stand up to the massive AoE damage that these Mumakil can put down. But the Mumakil really, they've got the mass to just run through things, get out of engagements that they don't like, and move on to other places in the line where they can be of more use, like into the backs of these Bardian Marksmen, for example, or over here with the Lake Town Pikes and the Dalian Marksmen are being pressed hard by the Herodrum Spearmen, the Southron Warbands, and there's some Pikes in there as well. There is a unit of Pikes here fighting hard on the front lines. Look at this, a nice little Pike wedge, giving the Dalian Pikemen what for. That's a beautiful thing right there. Now, let's take a look at what's happening over here. It looks like... Oh, yes, we're missing some of it here. The forces of Globox and his allies have swept away this contingent from Rune. Oh, these forces would have been heavily... or they are heavily missed on the front lines over there. I think that this really big commitment here is maybe going to spell the doom of the developers' forces over on the other end. There's just been no damage done to Globox's army. His cavalry still in full swing. I think his allies have maybe lost a significant amount of theirs. Looks like some of the Dalian marksmen, or the Dalian cavalry over here got shot down by the Luknar Rim. But now they're in the back lines, running amok, and just cutting things down wherever they will. The Great Company Militia has managed to scoop behind the Runic position, coming, I think, through this path here, through this little camp, behind the Runic forces, and now they're in amongst the archers and just killing as they will. This is a really ugly thing right here. Look at this, the Royal Guard charging hard into the Luknar Rim. That's going to be an ugly, ugly affair for them. The Flag Rim are going to countercharge, and usually this is the best thing that you can do to at least deal some damage to cavalry that is charging your infantry. Otherwise, they will just get hacked down, even if they're in brace formation. And hold on, let's slow it down just a little bit here. This is one of the things that I do not like very much about the mod, and this is absolutely this. I'm going to preface this by saying this is not to denigrate the hard work, and let me tell you, it is hard work that the developers do to make this mod awesome, to add new units, to add flavor to the rosters. So this is not a stab at anybody, and it's certainly not a stab at Globox's strategy here. He is using the tools that are available to him very, very effectively, and that is why he is one of the scariest players on the Discord. But something that I would like to see in the future is less kind of catch-all units like the Kalanardhan Knights, for example, who have 3 HP, they're anti-cav, they're anti-armor, they do everything well. I would like to see expensive, powerful units that are a little bit more specialized. So maybe the Kalanardhan Knights are really useful against taking down other cavalry units, like, say, spear-armed cavalry in Igni Feroque are, and maybe the Royal Guard and things like that. Could be better at melee, or maybe the LB Shock Cavalry and the Rohan Nobles being more heavily armored would be a better choice for melee cav. I would like to see less powerful units like cavalry, which is already very strong in melee in Medieval 2, being kind of like a generalist unit that you can use as either shock cavalry or melee cavalry. They'll do it all for you if you're willing to pay an expensive price point. I think that would be a lot more interesting, from not just a commentary perspective, but also from a gameplay standpoint. Because when you're facing down heavy cavalry like this, and they just, like, look at this, there's no cavalry losses here almost whatsoever. The clansmen, that's to be expected, but the Runic heavy infantry, almost no losses, which is not what you would expect from cavalry charging into braced infantry that do not break. And I think it's more interesting, and it's definitely less frustrating when you're on the other end of a furious cavalry charge from these Kalanardhan Knights and from these Rohan Nobles, like the remaining Runic forces are about to experience. And yeah, mostly I would just like to see less heavy cavalry that has a lot of HP and really high armor and attack values that does everything well, and is a little bit more specialized, and that way you have a system of counters, right? Because right now the only real counter to units like the Kalanardhan Knights or the Rohan Nobles is other units that are this strong, or a ton of AP missiles if the player is going to throw them away like that. So unless you throw away cavalry like this, it doesn't matter what they cost, they will always pay for themselves. So I'd like to see that change in Reforged patches in the future. But very much this mod rather, is still in its beta stages. So once 1.0 comes out, that's going to be more or less the final form, I think, for the mod. So yeah, obviously there's still some room to grow here, but again, not to take away from any of the hard work or the great plays that the Rohan player is making right now. But in any case, the Rohan and community allied cavalry is really doing a number on the Runic forces. This is most of their army, in fact, that has been swept away by these cavalry units, and damn, is that going to be a loss that is dearly, dearly felt. These camels chosen are going to be able to stand up to it, I think, a little bit better, but for the most part, I think that Rune has been more or less eliminated at this point. So let's pop back on over to the developer community fight side of things, and let's see what's going down. Still a couple of Mumakil in there, just running completely amok, not actually running amok, but just going crazy on the forces of Dale and the rest of the community team. And you can see the Bardian marksman now beginning to flee. This Lake Town pike line is shaken, so we could start to see the... oh man, now they're wavering. We might see the remaining forces from the community team, from their infantry and such, be swept away here in just a few moments. Over here, it looks like we got some Bardian marksmen being silenced by an attack from the Nerniag Raiders. These guys probably out of ammunition at this point, and just preventing these Bardian marksmen from lending any of their formidable fire support to the rest of the army. They have a nice flank shot here into the Southron Warband and into the Nerniag infantry otherwise, and yeah, pinning them in place, it does allow for things like these Mumakil to come in from behind them. Oh, this is going to be ugly. Let's go up to full speed now. Bam! Look at that. This is what the Mumakil can do to you. Those Dalian marksmen are going to just take that on the chin, lose half their number, over half their number, very, very quickly. Pope Fluffy Duck trying to do some damage control here with his Dalian Paladins. Oh, pardon me. Still fighting that cold. But the Dalian Paladins here charging into those Mumakil, trying to do some damage to them. Looks like Dol Amroth fighting against the Kondish infantry. They've managed to reap a terrible, terrible toll on the forces of Khan, but I think they're ultimately going to be overwhelmed. Over here you can see one final unit of Dol Amroth men-at-arms being pinned in place by some Neurod footmen here. Just attacked on both sides with those nasty AP picks that they have. These guys are not going to last for too much longer. Over here, yes, again, Khan victorious over most of the Dol Amroth forces, though they did pay a very heavy, heavy toll in their cavalry against the Dol Amroth forces. Dol Amroth, as we saw earlier on in the game, was really, really on point when it came to supporting their cavalry with their infantry, which, if you have an opportunity to do that, absolutely do it, because he will turn that fight in your favor 9 times out of 10. Looks like some of the runic cataphracts still being a nightmare in the back here. Looks like they just swept away a large number of those Adelon halberdiers, and yes, now they're in the process of running down the survivors. Not a lot of cavalry left, however. I got about 15 Varied Cataphracts here, some of the Loka Unesrim, and there's a fairly healthy unit of Varied Cataphracts here. I don't know, 13, but I know I saw some Brotherhood of the Lance. Indeed, here they are, charging into the Dol Amroth men-at-arms, finishing off that unit, so I think it's safe to say that Dol Amroth has been swept from the field. And if we pop back over to the other end, it looks like Dale has pretty well suffered the same fate. The developers are ascendant in this portion of the battlefield, and I think the only thing that he really has left at this point, that being Pope Fluffy Duck, is his unit of Paladins, who are just running around. I think maybe they're still chasing after those Mumakil. It looks like maybe now it's the Mumakil's chance to turn things around. So now the shoe is on the other foot. The Dalian Paladins being chased here. I feel like I should have some Benny Hill music. They're being chased down by Haradrim spearmen, this mad band of desert nomads wielding sticks. And of course there's the Mumakil in the background who look like they were chasing them as well. But let's move back over here. So it looks like yes, this is the strategy of the community team finally coming to fruition. You can see some Rohan bodyguards here. Kalanarha Knights still in good shape. Rohan Nobles, 29 in that unit. This might not be so bad for the developers if they didn't have 29 Rohan Nobles and 14 of those Kalanarhan Knights left. That is a lot of Kalanarhan Knights. And of course there's the Royal Guard over here as well. So Glowbox now positioning his cavalry in the woods, going to wait for the rest of his allies, I think, maybe to join them with whatever they have left. Yeah, you can see some Cardinal Knights and things like that in the back here. Oh, some Vorchel Gatekeepers. I wonder where they've been the whole time. This is a big, big assault on the developers from the rear. Much more than I would have expected. Glowbox just cleaning up all the remains of Rune, but moving forward with his cavalry and taking a position. Good move on the part of Rohan. Let's see. Oh, man, look at the mess that this is. This is just nasty. I'm not sure the developers have the forces left. I don't know. They do have the Demons of the Desert. They got some Trollmen. Fair amount of Trollmen, about 65 or so Trollmen. That can really be a big thing at this late point in the game. Some Southron Pikemen as well. Looks like Glowbox's cavalry managed to get a nice shot, or a nice charge off there on the Haradrim archers, who are perhaps foolishly going to pursue them. Oh, maybe they'll be able to catch them out, but I think Glowbox is going to be on top of it. Yeah, indeed, he does see it, so he's going to get out of there with his Rohan bodyguards. I'm surprised that none of them got themselves skewered on this cavalry as they on these stakes rather, as they try to retreat from that battle. Ooh, losing my words. I blame my cold. It's made things very foggy for me. The developers do have a lot of Neurod footmen left. Khan definitely still has some significant standing forces, so maybe what I mentioned earlier on in the game will come to pass, where there's enough forces here that they can just overwhelm the cavalry of Glowbox and his allies. Although I did not count on Foreshell Gatekeepers, two very healthy companies of Foreshell Gatekeepers still being in the fight at this late stage in the game. So, and there's some allied cavalry over here as well. I don't know. I don't know if the developers really have the forces left to deal with these guys. They've got a lot. They've got that Mumakil too, which is going to be a beautiful ace in the hole. Although unfortunately they only have one left. I think another one died. Possibly to the Dalian Paladins. Indeed, the Dalian Paladins finally doing their job, taking down one of those great war beasts. And looks like they're trying to flee and maybe rejoin the fight with the rest of their allies. Still some Dalian cavalry over here. Not very much. But looks like Sin of the Dark Cloud is trying to hunt it down. I wonder if these cataphracts are going to be able to connect. Oh, that one unlucky cavalryman. I apologize. Just give me one moment. Sorry about that. The head cold is real. But it looks like for the time being, the developers are just trying to reform and decide what kind of plan of attack they want to adopt moving forward here. Now they do have an opportunity, maybe, to funnel the forces of Glowbox and his allies into these narrow areas like this. There is some terrain here that prevents what remains of the community team from forming a united front against the developers. But they do have enough missiles that I think that they could just pepper down these Haradrim forces really, really easily. And I don't know that that Khan has enough cavalry left to project their power far beyond their lines without fear of them being wiped out. Especially these Foreshell Gatekeepers, they're going to be able to basically do whatever they want, more or less unimpeded. I don't think there's any missile troops left for the developers, and that's going to be a big deciding factor here, because you cannot just charge these guys with cavalry and expect that cavalry to do well. What do we got over here? Looks like some of the camels chosen managed to rally together and make it out of the destruction of the runic army. So with an influx of some elite infantry like this, if they can pick an infantry fight, then that is something I think that they could win. Maybe they could use some of their infantry in conjunction with their remaining cavalry units. This Brotherhood of the Lance here at 25 is definitely going to be the linchpin of any strategy like that. But supporting that cavalry with some heavy infantry like the Camels Chosen, I think that'd be the perfect candidate, because they are AP against the cavalry of Glowbox. If they can get those engagements, those key engagements, then maybe they can pull this off. But I think being aggressive now is as important as it was for Gundabad in the beginning.
Slain by the enemy. Our allies have fled the field.
Looks like that would be the Dalish general who just got cut down by the Brotherhood of the Lance. And I don't think there's really anything left from Dale. It's mostly just Glowbox and some of the forces from Eriador. But for the most part, the developers have beaten the vast majority of the community team. That being said, Glowbox's main army is pretty well untouched. He's got all of... Oh my god, look at all those archers. Hundreds upon hundreds of archers. And the bounce power bar is pretty evenly matched at this point. He's got a lot of heavy infantry. He's got the shield maidens. He has so much skirmish that's... even if an infantry fight happens, maybe even then it won't be enough. The shield maidens with their Franciscas are... Damn, are they strong. They're very scary. And they're also not too bad in melee as well. So it looks like we're going to be waiting a little while here for the fight to really kick off. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fast forward once more, and I will see you guys in just a few moments. So Glowbox's skirmish line finally getting itself into position. All these Eorling archers are going to be able to just wreak absolute havoc on the forces of Harad. I think their first target is going to be this fairly healthy company of Southron pikemen. There's like 2 units or so in there for a grand total of at least 100 pikemen. That is going to be an ugly, ugly affair unless WK gets them out of there really, really quickly. And I think he realizes the danger that he's in, because it seems to be indeed that these Southron pikes are going to pull back very, very quickly. Looks like, what's Glowbox's first target going to be? Of course it's going to be the Trollman of Harad. This is a very, very scary unit that is going to cause a lot of problems for the Rohan infantry line, which is really the only infantry that the community team has left to them at this point. And it looks like, yes, this is the strategy that I was hoping I would see, and is indeed the best course of action here. So the developers are just gonna go for it. There's no point in sitting back and getting shot. I think maybe this could have been done a little bit earlier, because this is very clearly going to be Globox's strategy from the start, but this is what they need to do. They're not going to sit back and take it like Gundabad. Oh no, they are going to sally forth. Mumikil is going to be on their heels as well, and that is going to be ugly for Rohan. We're going to see another, like, Battle of Pelennor Fields here, with those Mumikil absolutely running completely amok amongst the ranks of the Rohirrim. Look at this. Globox is now going to have to pull back with his Easterling archers, but many of them are exhausted, so I wonder how quickly they're going to be able to flee in the face of so much fairly well rested troops. But that's going to relieve the pressure from the developer team, and they are going to be able to at least avoid a slow and painful death by missile. Now, the cavalry from Globox going to charge forward here, again, having to go through his main line. If the developers were closer, like Gundabad was earlier, then they would have been able to avoid what's happening to them right now. But with those cavalry in there, there's some pikes moving in support. They've got the camel shows, and this is the engagement that they want. Now, if they can get in there with that Mumikil and just do some serious damage, especially to those Kalinorhan Knights, for example, then they can win this fight, I believe. What do we got here? Kalinorhan Knights fleeing in the face of those pikemen, of this furious assault by the developer team. It just seems almost unending at this point. The Trollmen of Harad still looking pretty healthy. Still got 35 left in the unit. I think there's another unit of them lurking around here as well. Demons of the Desert moving up as well. Great company coming in. Looks like they're trying to maybe flee behind the lines. Look at this. Nirad Fudman tired from their charge across there, but the Marshals of the Red are not faring any better in terms of fatigue. Over here we can see the Easterling archers being smashed apart by the cavalry of the developers, but unfortunately this Brotherhood of the Lance unit is not going to be any match for the cavalry of Rohan. They're going to have to pull out of there nice and quick, but Globox's skirmish line is in complete disarray. This is what I was hoping to see from Gundabad, and if Gundabad had done this initially, I think that this fight would be much more in favor of the developers. And you can see the infantry line here being overwhelmed by the infantry line of the community team, I should say, being overwhelmed by that of the developers. These Nirad Footmen are able to just punch right through those lines, getting into the back lines. These poor Easterling archers getting massacred right now. So Globox has managed to retreat with blocks of his skirmishers, and oh man, there goes the Khan's general. But now that they're able to retreat into this block formation like this, and the rest of the forces are bogged down, this is where it's going to start to get really, really ugly, and things start to turn in favor of Globox and his remaining allies. I don't know if there's anything left from the developers still to come. No, it looks like that is pretty well the full commitment. And there goes the Eriador general. Oh man, looks like we see some pikemen just getting absolutely butchered over here. Some routing out the Southron pikemen, not going to stick around for too much longer. Over here we got some Southron warband getting a big charge. There goes the Haradrim general. I think that's going to be enough to rout the Southron warband. Indeed, much of the Harad army seems to be in flight now. I got some pikemen over here. Those AP pikes, they won't do too poorly against the Helm Hammers. They'll trade fairly cost efficiently, but they are very exposed. It seems like much of the developers' forces have been swept away on the flanks. The center seems to be holding reasonably well. Oh, damn. Those poor Haradrim spearmen now fleeing after the loss of the general, shrieking back to their deserts. Over here we got a very brave band of spearmen going to charge right into those Kalinorhan Knights. Maybe we'll get a nice kill. If they get a kill against these really high-tier cavalry, I'll be extremely impressed. No, unfortunately, there's going to be hacked down in return, almost instantly routed, and that is going to leave... Oh, it looks like some of the center is routing too. Oh, this is a disaster for the developers. The only thing that's really left is the Trollmen of Harad, and unfortunately, they didn't seem to be able to join the battle as quickly as they would have liked. But they are going to just push on towards the what remains of the skirmish line. We got some camels chosen in there who managed to make it all the way home to the skirmish line of Globox and his allies. Trollmen of Harad going to just go for it. Meanwhile, the cavalry of Globox is cleaning up all that remains, so the rear of these forces is very much exposed. But you can see the difference, right? If they'd have stayed back and played like Gundabad had, they would have just been shot to death, and it would have been far less glorious, I think, than it was. But they managed to overwhelm that Rohan infantry line really quickly, kill a lot of their skirmishers, so that is definitely a weakness to this skirmish and cavalry-heavy comp, is that you don't have a lot of boots on the ground who are capable of going toe-to-toe with elite infantry. And if the developers had more cav, maybe some more counters to the Kalanor Knights left to them at this point, if the Mumakil were able to do a little bit more damage, for example, there was like 3 or 4 Mumakil left, I think that this would have gone very much a different way, or at least been much closer than it is right now. Because if we look at the, I don't know, we can't really look at the percentages, but it seems like Lobok still has a lot of forces left, a lot of Fortune Gatekeepers there as well. But honestly, this would have been, yeah, there's a few things that I've already mentioned that would have made this a lot closer. But still, the developers, they definitely, this is the right course of action. They had 2 choices left to them, and they picked the right one, in my opinion. All those Trollmen hacking down those Helmingas. Doing their best. The small band of infantry doing pretty well against the Helmingas. The Helmingas are AP, so this won't last for too much longer. Let's go ahead. Let's fast forward just a little bit. Oh, some more Harad Spearmen came back from routing. Beautiful. They're going to get in there, and unfortunately they are going to rout pretty well immediately. I think due to the presence of some of the Cardinal Knights in their back lines. And the rest of the elite infantry has pretty well been swept away. This is going to be a reasonably solid victory for the community team. But let's slow it down for a moment. Let's just take stock of the glorious battle that happened. We had one over here with Gundabad, the wreckage of Gundabad's army. You can very clearly see here. Then the fight moved over to Rune. A lot of bands. Looks like some of the bands of survivors got cut down here. There's a big fight over on this end that saw the end of many of the runic forces. And meanwhile, there was this epic disaster over on this side. Look at this. Look at this mess. I love it. This is a great game when you can look out on the battlefield and see so many dead bodies, which that's a little bit grim. Maybe I'm enjoying this just a little bit too much, but damn, was that a fine game. Even down to the end there, it looked like maybe the developers had it, or at least had a shot, but unfortunately that cavalry just proved to be a little bit too much for them. They weren't able to shut down the missiles, and I think that the Rohan infantry line held them up long enough for most of their forces to be shot to death and for their generals to be sniped, and after that, their army basically just melted around them.
General lies dead.
I don't know whose general that was. Maybe the runic general. Alright, let's go ahead and let's fast forward right to the end there. Got some admit defeats, and that is going to be all that she wrote. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Maybe another one coming up today. Although, you know what? I may do some more 4th Age. I'm definitely going to do another Techless campaign video that will be coming up either today or tomorrow. But, yeah, I'm going to do some more 4th Age, because I don't think I've ever seen one of my Let's Play videos get that many views in the course of a day. Seems like that's a series that people have really resonated with and that they want to see more of. So, yeah, absolutely. You guys want to see it, I will do it. So there'll be some more 4th Age coming up much sooner than the last episode. There's not going to be like a 3-month break. Maybe there'll be a day or two if it doesn't come out today. I'm deciding kind of what I want to upload today, but I mean, I have a tournament battle that I can do, which is reasonably short. It's a 1v1, obviously, because it's a tournament, but it is a really clear example of what Mumakil can do when there's no counters to them on the field, and it ended up being reasonably close anyway. But yeah, we'll see. And but whatever comes, I will see you guys in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye.